Welcome, my pack, my tribe, to Howling After Dark. Great stuff tonight. It's all about investigations, how to actually properly do one. And before we get to that, I kind of want to get to what actually spawned the idea for tonight's show. Somebody posted something to me on Facebook, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but they actually posted it to our group page, and this is done by Massillon Ghost Hunter Society in Massillon, Ohio. Here's an article we wrote a while back. We wanted to repost it for everyone new to this page. Please leave some feedback. Collecting evidence of the paranormal should not be easy. Paranormal investigation is a hobby of patience. We spend 6 to 8 hours at a place with equipment set up and recording. Then at the end, tear everything down, go home and review just to spend another 6 to 8 hours to find nothing. And then start the process all over again. And that's fine. Truth be told, a paranormal investigation is a very slow, sometimes boring process that yields nothing in the end. This is paranormal investigation done right. Unlike the TV shows where the common phrase is, "Did you hear that?" or "Did you see that?" or in almost every investigation, they got so many EVP video and photos of ghosts. Okay, and this article continues in, pretty much in that vein, but it's flawed. And I know the people at Massillon Ghost Hunter Society, and I know they're very serious about what they do, and I get why they wrote this article. But it's a flawed premise, because their premise is based on that there is only one correct way to investigate, and that's just not true. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, because while I do agree with a lot of what they're saying, it's not like it is on TV. And a lot of these, especially the newer teams, they're very excited to get anything. And they'll get dust and go overboard thinking it's an orb, or an EVP that can be explained by, the fact that somebody was talking in the next room and it was picked up on such a sensitive microphone. And so I get that that's kind of where they were heading with it, but their basis is that, if it comes to you easy, then it's not correct. I'm sorry, but wrong. Because how easy or how difficult it is to gather evidence, a lot of the time depends on many different factors, including the spirits specifically that you're dealing with, because they're as varied as human beings are, because that's what they were. They were human beings, and just like us, they have different turn-ons and turn-offs, so to speak. So not everybody is going to be to communicate with every single person that investigates the paranormal. It doesn't work like that. Now, having said that, and those who are on my team, and by the way, hi Jeremy, he just said hi to me in chat, so hi, welcome, as always. My team, Ghost Wolf Paranormal, I formed it 3 years ago. I actually initially formed it while I was still part of another team called PACE, Paranormal and Cryptid Exploration. because I wanted originally the idea was to be kind of like a splinter group, sort of, and work in different areas other than those that Pace worked in. It didn't quite work out that way. Bunch of shit happened, and I don't want to air dirty laundry, so to speak, but it wasn't good, and I ended up, just forming Ghostal Paranormal as a separate entity about 2 years ago. Now, in that time, though, in that short amount of time, we can actually kind of boast about something that almost every other team we've ever encountered cannot. And that is, we have never, not once, walked away from an investigation without legitimate evidence. And the reason I know it's legitimate is because when we collect evidence, we are looking about, at what else is going on at the same time to back it up. I personally follow what I call the rule of three. If I get an EVP, for example, I want 2 other pieces of evidence to back it up. And whether it's evidence caught on a camcorder or on some other device, or evidence that we just personally experienced at the time, to me that is still evidence. So in the 3 years that we've been a team, we've never ever walked away from an investigation empty-handed. And it hasn't been all that difficult. And I think that the reason for that, quite honestly, is due to our approach. We don't provoke. We don't believe in it. Personally, I think that it's provoking is bullshit. Because here's my best analogy on this, okay? If you would not go into somebody's home, into their living room, while they're watching TV, and talk to them the way that people provoke, then you probably shouldn't frickin' do it. Because it's disrespectful. And you can't sit there and disrespect somebody and expect them to want to talk to you. So the whole practice of provoking in my way of seeing things, at least, is completely unnecessary. Or to put it the way that my grandma put it, you can catch more flies with honey, which is absolutely true. And you see it in the paranormal far more than anywhere else. So I get what they were trying to say in this article, but I just don't agree with exactly what they're saying. I mean, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to point out to a lot of these younger teams that have been around for a while. These investigators that just got together because they saw Ghost Adventures and thought it looked cool. And things of that nature. They're trying to bestow upon them the wisdom of having patience. I get it. But their view is not the only view. So therefore, them saying that if it's easy, it's not done right is absolute bullshit. I'm sorry, it is. It is absolute bullshit. Because not every investigator is the same. Not every investigator is going to have the same style, the same approach, or the same kind of relationship with the spirits in question. We go out of our way to use history to get closer to them on a personal basis. We're not just sitting there, trying to collect scientific data, which is great. It is great when we get that. But that's really not what it's about. Not for us, anyways. Because to us, like, it's not just a hobby. First of all, like they said, it's a hobby of patience. Bullshit. It's not a hobby. And people need to stop fucking thinking about it like it's a hobby. It is not a hobby. It is a calling. There's a big difference. A hobby is building models, or collecting stamps, or even like golfing. Shit that is not going to affect the world one way or the other if you decide not to do it. This is not a hobby. If you don't feel that the paranormal is a calling, is a way of life, then you're in the wrong fucking line of study in the first place. And I'm sorry to be, blunt about it like that, but that's how it is. Those of us that have been doing this more than there have been TV shows about it all feel that way. You can interview anybody. I mean, if Hans Holzer was still around, he would tell you pretty much the same thing. Even though his viewpoints on the paranormal may differ, he may approach things in a more scientific way. He would tell you that it's a calling. It's his way of life. It's not a hobby. He spent his entire life in the study of the paranormal. Same thing with Ed and Lorraine Warren. They spent their entire lives in the study of the paranormal. That's not a hobby. A hobby is something you can set aside, like a child maturing and becoming a man and setting aside his toys. That is what a hobby is. Calling paranormal study a hobby kind of pisses me off. So I just wanted to address that part of it. But, other than that, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to bestow wisdom, and I get that. And I don't have a problem with that. But their view that there's only one correct way of investigating is absolute and utter bullshit. So, but I do agree. In a large way, that's why I started doing this show, Howling After Dark, is because I don't only want to entertain. Okay, entertaining is great, it's fantastic, but that's not the main goal of this show, and it never has been. The main goal of this show is to bestow wisdom about different points of view when it comes to the paranormal. Because that's what the tagline for the show has always been: paranormal through the viewpoint of Native Americans, first of all. And we view spirits very differently than others do, generally. Because we are not afraid of them, first of all. Even Lorraine and Ed Warren have a certain amount of fear when it comes to spirits. We don't have that because we're taught from a very early age that spirits are just a part of the natural world. They're as real and as vital to the world as the earth we walk on, the air we breathe, the water and food that sustains us. They are a necessity. And we may not fully understand what that necessity is. We may strive to explain what it is, much the way that I'm sure early people tried to explain, you know, the vitality of fire or air. These are things that were learned actually very slowly. It's not like, oh, they discovered fire overnight. Bullshit. It took generations. And finally we're starting to get to a point where people are taking the paranormal, kind of seriously, aside from the occasional fucktards that are, kind of messing things up for the rest of us. So, so, we we do take it seriously, but there's no rule saying that you've got to, process your evidence a certain way. Because, and here's the most important part, and this is the part they failed to realize in that little article they put together. And I do actually give them props for putting that article together. I think it shows a certain amount of investigative maturity, if you will. But this is the part they either don't realize themselves, or maybe they just don't believe in, or what have you. But I'm going to state it for the record, and this is my opinion. Feel free to disagree, but, keep in mind that I've been doing this for a quarter of a century. The most important tool we will ever have is not digital recorders. It is not infrared camcorders. It's not any device. The most important tool that we have are the instincts, intuition, and perceptions of the investigators involved. So telling anyone that they're not doing it right is utter bullshit. Because, sorry, that's not correct. Now, having said that, I understand the group or groups of people they were referring to is like these newbies that have watched the shows and think they know what to do, because the reality is far different than what you see on TV. And I get that's what they were trying to address, but I think it's just like the way that they put it is what I really have a problem with. But, and I've always urged people that if they want to get together and they want to investigate the paranormal, don't just go off half-cocked because you saw shit on a TV show and think you know what to do. Hook up with somebody with some experience on them. Whether it's, even if it's only like a couple of years experience, it's still more experience than you have just starting out. So, just keep that shit in mind, and be open to other points of view. Don't have closed-minded kind of blanket statements like, well, if it's easy, it's not done right. Because that's not necessarily true. Because how easy or difficult it is in exact proportion to your particular method of investigating. If you're sitting there yelling and screaming trying to provoke people, of course you're not going to get hardly shit. Nobody wants to talk to an asshole, and that's how you come off when you do that, as an asshole. But on the flip side, if you're caring and you're understanding in general, during an investigation, and that comes across in your investigative style and in the questions you ask and the statements you make, like during EVP sessions, for example, you're going to get a lot more evidence than otherwise because, like I said, you catch more flies with honey. Ah, sorry, needed a drink. Um, so, yeah. Now let's discuss the different styles of investigating. Now, I've made it no secret that I despise provoking. I believe it to be unnecessary, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention it as a style of investigation. There is provoking style, where you're actually trying to provoke spirits into doing something that will allow you to gather evidence. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's necessary at all. But that's my belief on it. You know, I'm not going to say it's an invalid approach. I kind of believe that it is. But, you know, everybody's got to make their own personal choice. So there is that style. There's historic, the historic style, which is kind of what we fall under. Meaning that rather than provoking, we don't do that. What we actually do is we use historical data to elicit a response from the spirits. Case in point, our favorite place, the Mansfield Farm Museum. We know that the history there is directly related to the haunting itself. Okay, but the building itself isn't haunted. What's actually haunted are the artifacts that are on display within the museum, including the fire engines. The oldest of which is from the 1850s, which was a horse-drawn 8-man hand-pumped fire engine. But it is in working condition. It literally could be filled with water and used today. Everything there is in working order. But you know, it's my belief, anyways, that everything there has spirits attached to it. And when I first started going there, initially I was with this group Pace, and I didn't really know what to think. I didn't know any of the history about it, you know, and I didn't learn anything really. I knew that there were spirits there because we were getting EVPs and we did catch some stuff on film, but we didn't really know, or rather, I didn't really know any of the spirits there on any kind of personal basis. It wasn't until I formed Ghost Paranormal and started asking questions using devices like a spirit box or an EVP recorder that I learned anything. And a key example of that is when I'd been going there for on and off for a while when I was with Pace and didn't really learn much, I gotta say. You know, and that's not to dig on them at all. It's not a dig on them. It's just a statement of fact. But when I formed Ghost of Paranormal and we started going there, I don't know if it was like the very first investigation or if it was a while later, but we had encountered the spirit of a dog. And I can see them. I've been able to see spirits since the age of 5, which I've discussed before on this show. And I encountered this very adorable Dalmatian dog. You know, it looked like the quintessential firehouse dog. You know, like a Norman Rockwell kind of thing. And I'd whistle for her and she'd come. And we even caught EVP of her like claws clacking on the floor as she's running towards me, and like the jingle of her tag on her collar on EVP. And we've captured like sounds of her gruffing, you know, like you know, quick little barks and stuff of that nature. So we know that she's there. And so, since I knew that she was there, I wanted to look into it, and I did. I found out that her name, well, first, actually, what I did is I asked what her name was. I had a digital recorder rolling, and I said, "Hey, all you brave firefighters, can you please tell me the name of this beautiful dog?" And when I played it back, I heard the response, Sally. So I looked up Sally the dog, and, you know, as it relates to the Mansfield Fire Department, I found out that back in the 30s, the Mansfield Fire Department actually caught fire itself. And Sally went in and rescued 8 out of 9 firefighters that were on duty that night, and went in for the last one, and unfortunately her and the last firefighter died in the fire. So Sally was a hero, and every time I'm there, I'm like, "Sally, come here, girl," you know, because I know she's there, and now I know why she's there, you know. And then another key example is like how we went to the Mansfield Reformatory. It was like the first month or so when I formed Ghostful Paranormal. Me and some investigators are unfortunately no longer with us because they lived, you know, so far away. Were there that night, and we went into the reformatory, and there were like 7, 8 other teams there that night, and they were all complaining about how they weren't getting any evidence, and they were all provoking, you know. And I knew some of the history from watching the Ghost Adventures episode, so I purposely sought out the cell where the one gentleman killed himself by lighting himself on fire. I actually went into that cell with a millimeter and discovered that it was actually 10 degrees hotter in that cell than anywhere else in the entire reformatory. And you know, I was using his name. I was using the name of the gentleman, DJ Fly, who was in the cell next to him. You know, I was asking all sorts of history-related questions because I didn't need to provoke. I knew the history. If you know the history, provoking is ridiculous. So, you know, that's kind of the style that we are. So we're historical, but we're also something else, which I'm going to get into in a minute. So there's provoking, there's historical, then there's the third type, which I honestly have kind of big problems with, because this is where more of your closed-minded skeptics seem to revolve to, is scientific. Now, I don't have a problem with science in itself. We use science in our investigation. We want to explain how these things happen. but we're not interested in explaining it to the larger community. The only thing we're concerned with is being able to explain this stuff to ourselves. So it's for our own benefit. We're not trying to prove it to the world. That's somebody else's job, as far as we're concerned. If people happen to, see our stuff on YouTube or hear the stuff I play from time to time on here, and that's proof enough for them, then God bless them. If they want more, then they can go out and get it themselves, and that's just kind of our viewpoint on it. So we are part scientific, but the scientific side, most of the people that are in the scientific style of investigating are very skeptical, if not outright closed-minded. And it's because they're trying to be ultra-scientific about it, which I can understand. I just don't necessarily agree with. I know that they debunk a lot of stuff because they just don't see how it could be a spirit or what have you. But these are also, people that kind of ignore a lot of the stuff that's happening right in front of them. And I think, that's certainly detrimental in the paranormal study, that you're ignoring the most obvious stuff that's going on right in front of you because you just don't believe it. Like your mind doesn't work that way because you want to be ultra scientific about it, which I certainly agree with science in itself. I just don't know about that as a legitimate approach to investigating the paranormal, because it's kind of like apples and oranges. Paranormal is and has always been really a field for more intuitive people than logical people. So, which brings us to the last style of investigating, which is also us, which is intuitive. We're intuitive because everybody on my team has some form of a gift. I see them, so, you hand me a camera, chances are, if there's something there to be caught, I'm going to catch it. Becky, our EVP specialist, she hears stuff. And not in like a schizophrenic, I hear voices kind of way, but like whatever it is, like she just picks up on it. And she asks good questions that seem to elicit a lot of responses. So, and that's why she's our EVP specialist. And then you've got, other people with different gifts. We've got some people that are sensitive. We got people that are empathic, that can feel the emotions of whatever's going on. And I gotta say it, just in my honest opinion, that intuition, that kind of intuitive investigating, will trump science every time, if you're not concerned about proving it to the world, which we absolutely are not. If the world ends up believing us because of stuff we present on YouTube or whatever, then fine. But if they don't, it's not going to break us either. We're not out to prove anything to anybody except for ourselves. And I think that's the key difference there. And I think that's probably true of most intuitive investigators. I think they're far more interested in their own relationships with the paranormal and in satisfying their own curiosities than they are curiosities of people that probably aren't going to believe them in the first place. And, that's kind of where we're at with that. And by the way, hi Becky, who just piped in on our chat room. She says hi, the EVP specialist here, which she is. She is. Um, our youngest investigator, Miss Abby, um, she's actually, I guess technically she'd be kind of a cousin. She's like the daughter of someone who is my cousin and my really close friend. So, she's a little bit like me, I think. I think she kind of sees them, not quite like I do, but like enough that she captures some really good stuff on like a digital still camera. So that's kind of her job is to take pictures, and she's really good at it. And her mom, Reagan, is very intuitive, and she's more of an all around investigator though. So like she doesn't really have a specialty per se, other than like her own intuition. Like she's the kind of investigator, and they haven't. Neither one of them have been doing it long, but they've become pretty successful at it. But Reagan is the type of person you could send into a place by herself, and she would immediately pick up on what's there. She's not like psychic per se, but she is sensitive, I think. So, everybody's got their own styles and their own personalities and their own ideas. But I think to a certain degree, that, pushing your ideas about the paranormal onto other people is not a good thing. And I know I'm guilty of it too, because I have very definitive viewpoints on certain things, like provoking. I absolutely despise, and I'm always saying that we have to be very careful about the things that we do in this field, because what we do most likely will reflect on the next group that does an investigation. In other words, it reflects on everyone else. In other words, doing stupid shit like those 7 assholes from Texas that got drunk and stoned and burnt down the Lalaurie plantation in New Orleans. That's affected everybody else, because for a while there, they were not allowing paranormal investigations in New Orleans at all. They closed it down. And I don't honestly blame them for closing it down because of those 7 assholes. Or like, people that fake evidence and think they're going to get away with it. Or people like Aaron Houdini, who sat there and ran his mouth and spouted a bunch of fucking lies on Darkness Radio, claiming that people at Poasttown Elementary were not only faking evidence, but that the Poasttown Elementary was unsafe because of asbestos and all this other bullshit that turned out to not be true. That shit affects everyone else, because it's not affecting just one person. It affects every other paranormal investigator, every other team that comes after you. So we have to be very careful about that. And so I do have very definitive viewpoints on shit. But I don't think I'm wrong. And I am very passionate about the paranormal. I think unless you're passionate about it, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Because you're not going to have the guts, the strength, the intuition, the wisdom, the knowledge to actually do what you need to do in order to satisfy your own curiosity. And all you're doing, honestly, is you're playing with fire. Unless you are seriously passionate about this field, aside from the fact that you thought it looked cool on a TV show, then you're in the wrong fucking field. It's as simple as that. Alright, folks, I've only got about 3 minutes left in this session. Do not go anywhere when this ends, because I will be back with part 2 of tonight's show, which is more about investigations and about different ways of doing them. And we'll get into, everybody has a different style, so I can't speak on anybody else's style as far as their team is concerned. They can only do what they think is best for their team, but we're going to get into how I believe a team should be organized as far as what everyone's positions are and what they're responsible for. And we're going to talk about how to properly set up equipment, how to use equipment, knowing the history of the place, not only the history of the place itself, but also the history of investigations that have happened before on how to set up equipment. And and that goes as far as what equipment to use where, to its best advantage, if you will. So, we got now about a minute left, so once I get off here, once it cuts off, don't go anywhere, because I'll be right back. Anyways, so, I can't say enough how much I despise provoking. I just think it's so unnecessary. I really do. And I think it's honestly dangerous, because I think when you push certain spirits too far, they're going to push back. And it's not always going to be in the way that you expect. And I'll give you some examples of that when we come back. Stay tuned for part 2. See you in a minute.